welcome back. Today I'm going to be tying up a Miss Sharon. The original version of this fly was tied tandem by Arthur Libby, but today I'm going to be showing you another popular version that's constructed on a single hook. So I've started my white 210 UTC thread on the hook shank, and the hook that I have in the vise is a Mustad size 2 streamer hook. It's 2 extra heavy and 9 extra long. It's really easy to construct a 3 to 4 inch fly with this hook. This is actually kind of a small hook size compared to like the Mike Martinick Gorelick Supremes. So you guys can see I've just been winding some touching turns, and I'm going to wind down to the barb of the hook. I'm going to snip off my tag. Take a few more turns here just to get even with the barb. Now I'm going to come in with some silver mylar tinsel. This is a size 12 Danville's. Any medium size silver tinsel will work. So I'm just going to bind this down and work my way back up to the hook eye. Now, if you guys want this to stay even, you should hold it on the hook shank like so it doesn't curve. You can see it's going to start curving if you don't hold it into place. I'm just not holding it because my hand would be over the fly and blocking the camera. Normally I would be. Just try to get nice even touching turns here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but the more even this base is, the easier it will be to wrap your floss body. Alright, now I'm up here at the hook eye. I'm going to grab my red floss. I've just got a piece of single strand uni floss here. I'm going to tie it in at the eye, snip off the waist, and I'll probably throw a half hitch in here so that this doesn't come unraveled on me as I'm winding. So I'm just going to grab the red floss and I'm going to start taking turns down towards the rear of the hook. And I'm going to go all the way down to the rear, and then I'm going to come all the way back up. And this is going to help me fill in any white spots. You can see I've got a few white gaps here already, but that's not the end of the world because I'm going to come back up with this floss. So make sure that if you're tying this, that you've got ample amount of floss to wind all the way down and all the way back up. And just take your time. Keep your tension on the floss. Now, I wish I had my good microphone hooked up today, but I don't. Winding this floss on is making an incredible humming noise. It kind of reminds me of like a Tibetan singing bowl, if you guys are familiar with those. The whole house is just humming right now. Whoops. And don't panic if you mess up like this. Just take a few turns backwards and continue. Now my side is looking perfect. I can't see any white on my side, but I can see on the camera that the side that's showing to you guys has a little bit of white. And that's exactly why I'm going to make 2 passes with this red floss. So here I come back up. And you can see I'm about ready to get to that white, the biggest white section that's exposed, and boom, covered it right up. So that's definitely one of the big advantages of wrapping down and then back up with your floss. This is a single strand floss, so I wouldn't tie this in any other way, personally. If I had a 4-strand floss, you could probably get away with um, just one pass from the rear up and then up to the hook eye. But then you don't get a second chance to cover up any mistakes. Now that I'm up to the hook eye, I'm just going to bind down the material here. A few turns in front and behind. Now I'll throw in a half hitch so that this floss doesn't come unwound. Come in with my scissors, snip off the tag. Now it's time to grab the rib. So I'm going to grab my silver tinsel. And I'm going to make fairly even wraps up towards the hook eye. Bind this down. A few turns in front and behind of the material to really secure it. And then I'll just snip it off. Now I'm going to grab 4 colors of bucktail. I've got white, red, orange, and black. I'm going to start with white. So I've just snipped off a clump of the white. I'm pulling out all the short and fuzzies and all the extra long ones. And I'm going to tie this pattern as sparse as I can possibly get it. So I'm going to set this clump on top. The hair is extending just past the rear of the hook. Take a few loose turns over the top. And then I'm going to take my thread back to where it began. And that gets me ready to set the next color on top. Now you guys can see I've tied this very sparse. If you were to ask the originator, Arthur Libby, he would say it's not sparse. From what I've read, he would probably only use about 2 to 3 fibers of each color. That's how sparse this was originally tied. But of course, if you want this to be a little more appealing to the human eye, you should overdress it slightly. Personally, I like mine a little bit more than 3 fibers. 5 or 6 is perfect for me. It's totally personal preference. The reason that all of these traditional hair wing streamers are tied sparse is so that they'll sink faster. If you've got 50 fibers of bucktail, that thing's going to float on top and probably on its side even. So we've got white, red. Next is orange. 2 or 3 loose turns forward. And then take the thread back. And now for the last color, it's going to be some black bucktail. Pull out the short and fuzzies and the long ones. Get a nice even sparse clump of black, set it on top. A few loose turns forward. And take a look. So now I'm going to come in with my scissors, snip this off at an angle. Grab my thread and start binding this down with some tension. You can also put a drop of super glue right here before you start winding, and that will give extra security to the hair, keep it from pulling out. Yep, still looks good. I'm just going to add a little more bulk to this head here so that I can paint the eyes on. The more uniform the head is, the easier it is to paint the eyes. And And then once I've got it looking decent, I'll come in and whip finish. A couple whip finishes in. Snip off the thread. Now before I paint on the eyes, I like to put a thin coat of lacquer on. This just helps to fill in any grooves in the thread wraps and makes it easier to paint the eyes on. So I'm just going to let that dry. And actually while it dries, I'll come in with some jungle cock eyes. You can see that this single hook pattern would actually look kind of cool. But I'm going to stick with the original plan and paint mine on with acrylic paint. So I'm just going to grab my white acrylic paint, put a dot on, put a dot on this side. Now I'm going to let it dry. Once it dries, come back with my black, put a dot in the center. Once all the paint has dried, I'll come back with some lacquer. I'll put a coat of this on, let it dry, and I'll put another coat on. And 2 coats will really make this shine. Get this extra lacquer off here. If I take it out of the vise and pull the hairs tight, you can see that when wet, this thing is pretty much the same diameter as the hook. Alright, so that is the finished single hook variation of the Miss Sharon. Let me know in the comments if you prefer the single hook or the tandem version. I've caught fish on both styles. Hopefully this pattern works as good for you guys as it has for me in the past. Hey, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you learned something, leave me a comment. I always appreciate you guys watching. New videos coming every week, so hit the subscribe button and I'll catch you next time.